800,000 years had passed since Earth was destroyed, and almost everyone in the galaxy had forgotten about humans. They were nothing more than a myth, a legend whispered among the stars. No one believed they were real anymore, and those who did were considered foolish. Lyra and Kara, two young alien girls, were explorers. They belonged to a species called the Yellari, a peaceful race known for their love of knowledge. The two girls were always curious about ancient civilizations, and today was no different. They flew their small spaceship across the dark, endless space, searching for something exciting, something no one had found before. "This is going to be another boring day, isn't it?" Lyra said with a sigh, staring out the window. Kara, who was at the controls, smiled and shook her head. "You never know, Lyra. Space is full of surprises." Suddenly, the ship's scanners beeped. Lyra jumped up, her eyes wide with excitement. "What is that?" she asked, looking at the screen. Kara quickly checked the controls. "It looks like an old ship. Very old," she said, her voice filled with curiosity. "It's been floating here for centuries, maybe even thousands of years." Lyra's heart raced. "An ancient ship! This could be the discovery of a lifetime. Let's check it out," she said eagerly. They steered their ship toward the mysterious object. As they got closer, they could see the ship was massive, covered in dust and debris from its long journey through space. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The design was strange, and the technology seemed outdated, even primitive. But there was something about it that made them both feel a deep sense of mystery. The ship docked next to the ancient vessel, and Lyra and Kara put on their spacesuits. They entered the dark, silent ship, their lights cutting through the thick dust that hung in the air. Everything was still, almost as if time itself had forgotten this place. "This place gives me the creeps," Lyra whispered, her voice shaky. "Me too," Kara admitted, but she couldn't hide her excitement. "But this is amazing. We could be the first ones here in who knows how long." As they explored deeper into the ship, they found something strange. In one of the rooms, there were large metal pods lined up against the walls. Each pod was sealed with a small window at the top. Lyra peered into one and gasped. "There's someone in here!" she exclaimed. Kara rushed over and looked through the glass. Inside the pod, they saw the figure of a human, perfectly preserved, as if frozen in time. His eyes were closed and his body looked peaceful, almost as if he were asleep. "No way!" "It can't be," Kara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Humans? They were real?" Lyra nodded, her heart pounding. "It looks like it." Both girls stood in stunned silence, staring at the human in the pod. They had just made the greatest discovery in the history of the galaxy. "Should we wake them up?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling with both fear and excitement. Kara didn't answer immediately. She was too shocked by what they had found. But one thing was certain. Their lives were about to change forever. Lyra and Kara stood frozen in front of the pod, staring at the human inside. The soft glow of their lights reflected off the glass, casting long shadows in the dark, dusty room. Neither of them could believe what they were seeing. A human, something thought to be a myth, was right in front of them, peacefully asleep. "Do you think he's alive?" Lyra whispered, her voice full of both fear and wonder. Kara cautiously moved closer, studying the pod's control panel. "It looks like he's in some kind of cryo sleep," she said, her fingers brushing over the ancient technology. "He could wake up if we figure out how to do it." The thought of waking a human after 800,000 years was terrifying and thrilling at the same time. Lyra's heart raced. "But what if he's dangerous? We don't know anything about humans, Kara. Maybe there's a reason they're in here." Kara frowned, thinking hard. "You're right. But we can't just leave them like this. We're explorers, Lyra. This is what we do. We discover things." Lyra nodded slowly, torn between her curiosity and her fear. She glanced around the room at the other pods. There were more, many more. All of them holding humans, all of them in deep sleep. "How many do you think there are?" she asked, her voice shaking. "At least a dozen, maybe more," Kara replied, her eyes scanning the room. "This ship must have been some kind of escape vessel. They probably fled Earth before it was destroyed." The weight of that realization hit Lyra hard. These humans were the last survivors of a dead world. They had been sleeping for hundreds of thousands of years, completely unaware that their home had long since vanished. She couldn't imagine what it would be like for them to wake up and find out they were all that was left of their species. Kara began inspecting the pod's control panel more closely, trying to figure out how to activate it. "We need to be careful," she warned. "We don't know what condition they'll be in when they wake up. They could be weak, or they could be violent." Lyra bit her lip, watching as Kara worked. "What if we wake just one of them? We could see how they react before we wake the others." Kara nodded thoughtfully. "That's a good idea. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves." She tapped a few buttons, and the pod let out a soft hiss. The lights on the control panel flickered, and the glass cover slowly began to lift. Lyra took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. The room seemed to hold its breath as the human inside began to stir. His eyes fluttered, and then, slowly, they opened. He blinked a few times, confused and disoriented as if waking from a long dream. "He's awake," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. The human sat up, his muscles tense, his gaze moving around the unfamiliar room. He looked at Lyra and Kara, his expression unreadable. For a moment, no one moved. Then he spoke, his voice deep and rough from years of silence. "Where am I?" he asked, his words slow and heavy. Kara swallowed hard, trying to find her voice. "You're on an alien ship," she said carefully. "You've been asleep for a very, very long time." The human stared at her, his face showing a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "How long?" he asked, his voice a little stronger now. Kara hesitated, glancing at Lyra before answering. 800,000 years. The human's eyes widened in shock, and for a moment the room fell into complete silence. Neither Lyra nor Kara knew what would happen next. The room felt colder after the human awoke. Lyra and Kara stood nervously, watching him closely. His eyes, still filled with shock, darted between the two alien girls and the strange surroundings. The weight of 800,000 years pressed down on him, though he could barely grasp the reality of it. "What's your name?" Kara asked gently, trying to calm the tense moment. The human took a deep breath, his muscles still stiff from the long sleep. "My name?" He paused as if trying to remember. "It's Jason." Lyra relaxed a little. At least he was talking and he didn't seem violent. Yet. "Jason, you've been in cryo sleep for a very long time. Earth, it's gone." Jason's expression darkened. "Gone?" He shook his head, his mind racing. "How? What happened to Earth?" Kara glanced at Lyra, unsure of how to break the news. "Earth was destroyed," she said quietly. "It happened hundreds of thousands of years ago. We don't know all the details, but your ship survived. You and the others in these pods, you're the last humans." Jason's eyes widened in disbelief. "The last?" He looked around the room, noticing the other pods for the first time. His fellow humans were still in deep sleep, unaware of the world that had changed while they were frozen in time. How could this happen?" Lyra stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. "We don't know what caused it. But you're safe now, Jason. You've been found and we can help you." Jason's mind was overwhelmed with questions, but none of the answers made sense. How could Earth be gone? Everything he knew, everyone he loved, his family, his friends, his home, gone, lost to time. He felt a deep ache in his chest, an emptiness he couldn't explain. But as much as the sadness weighed on him, there was also something else growing inside, determination. "What year is it?" he asked, his voice calmer now, though his eyes were still filled with disbelief. Kara hesitated before answering. "We're not sure how your calendar works, but it's been about 800,000 years since Earth's destruction." Jason let the number sink in. 800,000 years. More than enough time for everything he once knew to disappear. But here he was, alive, awake, and somehow still human. "Why did you wake me?" Jason asked, his voice sharper now. "We're explorers," Lyra explained. "We didn't expect to find humans. It was an accident." Feeling a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't truly alone. Maybe there were others out there, survivors like him, waiting to rebuild. "What about the rest of the galaxy?" Jason asked. "What's it like now? Who's in charge?" Lyra hesitated, then answered. "The galaxy has changed a lot. There are many species, many alliances. But the Yalari, our people, are one of the more peaceful races. We study history, we explore, but we stay out of wars. We've seen too many species destroy themselves, just like humans did." Jason nodded slowly, taking it all in. He wasn't sure what to think yet. So much had changed. The galaxy was nothing like the one he had left behind. But despite the tragedy of Earth's destruction, Jason felt something he hadn't expected. Purpose. I need to find the others, Jason said firmly. If there are more humans out there, we need to bring them together. We can't let our species end like this. Lyra and Kara exchanged glances. They knew this journey was only beginning. Jason was awake, and now the story of humans wasn't over. It was just starting again. As days passed, Jason began adjusting to life aboard the Yalari ship. He spent his time learning about his new surroundings, and Lyra and Kara were his guides. The ship, though advanced and strange, was a far cry from the wreckage of his old world. Lyra and Kara showed Jason around, explaining how their ship worked. "This is the control room," Lyra said, pointing to the holographic displays and sleek consoles. "We use these to navigate space and communicate with other ships." Jason touched the controls, his fingers brushing over the alien technology. "It's amazing," he said, trying to hide his awe. "So different from anything I've seen before." Kara smiled. "You'll get used to it. We'll teach you everything you need to know." As Jason learned about the ship, he also began to understand more about the Yalari and their history. The Yalari were a peaceful race, dedicated to preserving knowledge and exploring the galaxy. They had no need for weapons or war. They focused on learning and understanding. "This is our library," Kara said, showing Jason a room filled with floating books and interactive displays. "Here, we keep records of everything we've discovered. You can find information on almost anything." Jason wandered through the library, amazed by the wealth of knowledge. "It's incredible," he said. "So much information in one place." Lyra nodded. "We've been collecting it for centuries. We want to make sure that nothing is lost, even if civilizations fall." The more Jason learned, the more he realized how much he had missed. The Yalari's dedication to knowledge and peace was inspiring. He found himself fascinated by their culture and eager to learn more. In the evenings, the three of them would gather for meals. They shared stories and experiences, finding common ground despite their different backgrounds. Jason told them about Earth, its beauty, and its problems. He spoke of human achievements and failures, of wars fought and peace sought. Lyra and Kara listened with interest, their eyes wide with wonder. "I never knew humans had such a rich history," Lyra said. "It's both beautiful and tragic." Jason smiled sadly. "We had our moments. We made mistakes, but we also achieved great things. Maybe one day we can use what we've learned to build something new." The Yalari girls were eager to help. They offered to assist Jason in finding other humans, using their advanced technology to scan distant planets and regions of space. "We'll do everything we can to help," Kara promised. "You're not alone in this." Jason felt a deep sense of gratitude. The Yalari had welcomed him and offered him hope in a time when everything seemed lost. He felt like he was part of something bigger than himself, part of a new family. In return, Jason shared his skills and knowledge with them. He taught Lyra and Kara about human technology, engineering, and even some of Earth's languages. The exchange of knowledge was a two-way street, and both sides benefited greatly. As the days turned into weeks, Jason began to feel at home. He was no longer just a survivor from a forgotten world. He was part of a new adventure, a journey to rediscover and rebuild. The bonds between Jason, Lyra, and Kara grew stronger, and together they faced the future with hope and determination. Weeks had passed since Jason had joined Lyra and Kara on their ship. As time went on, the bond between them grew stronger. They had become a close-knit team, each bringing their unique strengths to the table. Jason's knowledge of human technology and history had proven invaluable, and the Yalari's advanced tools and wisdom complemented his skills perfectly. One day, as they worked together in the ship's lab, Jason came across a troubling piece of information. "We found something," he said, showing Lyra and Kara a holographic display. "A signal coming from a remote planet light years away. It could be another human colony." Kara's eyes widened with excitement. "That's incredible. We need to investigate immediately." Lyra nodded, her expression serious. "If there are other humans out there, we have to find them. They deserve to know the truth about Earth and their heritage." The ship's engines roared to life as they set course for the source of the signal. The journey was long and filled with anticipation. During this time, Jason used the ship's communication system to send out messages, hoping to contact the signal's source. The vastness of space was daunting, but Jason was determined. Finally, after several days, the ship arrived at the planet. The surface was rugged and barren with only a few signs of life. They landed near a small settlement, and Jason, Lyra, and Kara prepared to explore. As they approached the settlement, Jason's heart raced. This was the moment he had hoped for, the chance to find other humans and reunite with them. The settlement was quiet and simple, with makeshift buildings and a few people going about their daily routines. They looked up as the trio approached, their expressions a mix of curiosity and caution. Jason stepped forward, his voice steady but full of emotion. "Hello, we come in peace. My name is Jason, and these are my friends, Lyra and Kara. We're looking for other humans. We received a signal from this planet." A middle-aged man, tall and weathered, stepped forward. "You're human?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "I thought we were the last ones." Jason nodded, his eyes shining with hope. "We've found a few others, and we're working to uncover the truth about our past. Earth was destroyed, but we're here to find and connect with those who survived." The man's eyes softened as he took in the news. "We thought we were alone, that Earth was just a distant memory. We've built a life here, but we've always wondered about our origins." Lyra and Kara introduced themselves, explaining the Yalari's role in the discovery and their peaceful intentions. The humans listened intently, absorbing the information. Jason began to share stories of Earth, its beauty, its people, and its history. As the days passed, the human settlers welcomed the trio. They shared their own experiences and struggles, finding comfort in the knowledge that they were not alone. The settlement's leader, a woman named Emma, showed Jason around, explaining how they had managed to survive and adapt to their new world. Jason was struck by the resilience and resourcefulness of these people. Despite their challenging environment, they had built a thriving community. It was a testament to the power of humanity, their ability to endure, adapt, and rebuild, even in the face of overwhelming odds. "This is what makes us special," Jason said to Lyra and Kara one evening. "It's not just about our technology or our history. It's our spirit, our will to keep going no matter what." Lyra and Kara nodded in agreement. They had seen the strength of humanity firsthand, and it was inspiring. Together, they worked with the settlers to improve their technology and share knowledge, bridging the gap between past and present. As Jason looked around at the new community, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The power of humanity was not just in their survival, but in their ability to connect, to support each other, and to continue their journey, even after everything seemed lost. Jason, Lyra, and Kara had settled into their new routine, working closely with the human settlers. The days were filled with optimism as they shared knowledge and resources. The community thrived and hope grew stronger each day. However, their newfound peace was soon disrupted by a looming threat. One evening, as Jason and Lyra reviewed data in the ship's control room, an alarm suddenly blared. The ship's lights flashed red, and a series of warning messages appeared on the screens. "What's happening?" Jason asked, his voice tense. Lyra's fingers flew across the control panel as she scanned the data. "We're detecting an unknown fleet approaching. They're on a collision course with the planet." Kara rushed in, her face pale. "Who are they? Do we know what they want?" Lyra shook her head, her eyes focused on the rapidly approaching ships. "No clear identification. But we need to act quickly. If they reach the planet, they could pose a serious threat." Jason's heart raced. The peaceful life they had started to build was in jeopardy. "We need to warn the settlers," he said urgently. "They need to prepare and protect themselves." Lyra nodded, already sending out emergency alerts to the settlement. "We'll need to intercept the fleet before they land. We don't know what they're capable of." The trio quickly mobilized, preparing the ship for battle. The Yalari technology was advanced, but Jason and his team had to rely on both their training and ingenuity. As they launched into space, the unknown fleet came into view, a menacing array of dark, angular ships. Jason looked out at the approaching fleet, a mix of anxiety and determination in his eyes. "We don't know what these ships want, but we can't let them reach the planet." The ships were heavily armed, their weapon systems primed and ready. Jason and the Yalari crew maneuvered their ship to intercept them, trying to avoid the incoming fire. "We need to disable their main ship," Kara shouted over the comms. "It's their flagship. If we can take it out, the rest might retreat." Lyra expertly piloted the ship, weaving through enemy fire as Jason worked the weapon systems. With each pulse of energy, they struck the enemy fleet, trying to disable their weapons and shields. As the battle raged on, Jason's mind raced. He remembered stories of human resilience and bravery from Earth's history. This was their moment to prove it. He fought with everything he had, determined to protect the new world they had started to build. Finally, after what felt like hours, the flagship of the enemy fleet was hit. It exploded in a massive burst of light, sending debris scattering across space. The remaining ships hesitated, then began to retreat, their once coordinated attack now disorganized and frantic. The immediate threat was over, but the damage was done. The settlement had been on high alert, and some minor damages were reported, but the people were safe. Back on the ship, Jason, Lyra, and Kara took a moment to catch their breath. The battle had been fierce, but they had prevailed. Jason felt a mixture of relief and concern. This was only a glimpse of the challenges they might face in the future. "What was that fleet?" Jason asked, looking at Lyra and Kara. "Do you think they'll come back?" Lyra shook her head. "We don't know their motives yet, but we need to be prepared for any future threats. The galaxy is vast and unpredictable." Kara nodded in agreement. "We've shown that we can defend ourselves, and together we'll face whatever comes next." As they looked out at the stars, Jason felt a renewed sense of resolve. The universe was full of dangers, but humanity had faced challenges before and survived. With their new allies and their unbreakable spirit, they were ready for whatever lay ahead. The battle against the unknown fleet had left the settlers shaken but resolute. Jason, Lyra, and Kara knew that the galaxy could be a dangerous place, and their recent encounter was a stark reminder of that fact. They needed to prepare for any future threats, ensuring the safety of their newfound community. In the days following the attack, Jason worked closely with the settlers to bolster their defenses. The Yllari technology, combined with human ingenuity, provided the tools they needed to enhance their security. They built fortifications around the settlement and upgraded their communication systems to detect any approaching ships early. Jason and Lyra spent long hours in the ship's control room, monitoring space traffic and scanning for any signs of enemy activity. The Yllari had powerful sensors, but they needed to ensure that their technology could detect even the smallest threats. Meanwhile, Kara organized training sessions for the settlers. She taught them basic combat skills and emergency protocols. "We need everyone to be ready," she explained. "Even if you're not a fighter, knowing what to do in a crisis could save lives." The settlers took the training seriously. They practiced drills and learned how to operate the new defense systems. Jason was impressed by their determination and willingness to adapt. The human spirit was truly resilient, and it showed in their efforts to prepare for the unknown. As the days turned into weeks, the tension remained high. The threat of another attack loomed over them, and everyone felt it. The once peaceful community was now a fortified settlement, ready for war if necessary. One evening, while Jason was reviewing data from the ship's sensors, he noticed an unusual signal. It was faint but persistent, coming from a distant region of space. He immediately alerted Lyra and Kara. "This signal," Jason said, pointing to the screen, "it's not like the previous fleets. It's different, but it could still be a threat." Lyra examined the data closely. "It might be a reconnaissance mission or a warning. Either way, we need to investigate. If there's another fleet out there, we have to be prepared." The team made preparations to investigate the signal. They boarded the ship and set course for the source. The journey was tense, but they remained focused, determined to uncover the nature of the new signal. As they approached the source, they found a small, unremarkable craft drifting in space. It was damaged and appeared to be abandoned. Jason and Lyra boarded the craft to investigate, while Kara remained on the ship, monitoring their progress. Inside the craft, they discovered evidence of alien technology, similar to the previous fleets, but with key differences. It seemed to be a scouting vessel, likely sent to gather information on the settlement. "This confirms it," Jason said, examining the craft's data logs. "We're being watched. They want to know more about us before they decide what to do next." Lyra nodded, her face grim. "We have to be ready. If they're gathering information, it means they're planning something." The team returned to their ship, their minds filled with thoughts of the future. The settlement was now fortified, and the settlers were trained and prepared, but they knew that their work was far from over. Jason looked at his friends, determination in his eyes. "We've faced one threat, and we're ready for the next. We've shown that we can defend ourselves, and will continue to do so. Humanity has always been a force to be reckoned with, and will prove it once again." Lyra and Kara nodded in agreement. The galaxy was full of dangers, but they were ready. Together, they would face whatever came their way, standing strong and united. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as Jason, Lyra, and Kara prepared for what they hoped would be the final confrontation. The recent discovery of the scouting vessel had only intensified their resolve. They knew that an imminent threat was looming, and they had to be ready for whatever came next. The settlement was fully fortified. The once quiet community was now a hive of activity, with settlers manning defense stations and maintaining the upgraded equipment. Jason and Lyra continued to monitor the sensors, their eyes scanning for any signs of enemy activity. Kara, meanwhile, coordinated with the settlers, ensuring everyone knew their roles in the event of an attack. One evening, the sensors picked up a large fleet approaching the planet. The ships were massive, their dark silhouettes ominous against the backdrop of space. Jason's heart raced as he saw the numbers and the size of the fleet. This was the moment they had been preparing for. "We have to act fast," Jason said, turning to Lyra and Kara. "This is the main force. They're coming for us." Lyra nodded, her face set in determination. "We'll defend the planet. The settlers have prepared well, and we're ready to fight." Kara gave a reassuring smile. "We'll hold them off. We've faced threats before and survived. We can do it again." The Yalari ship, along with the fortified defenses of the settlement, was their first line of defense. As the fleet approached, the settlers activated their defenses, launching energy barriers and defensive drones. The ship, equipped with the latest technology, took position to intercept the enemy fleet. The first wave of enemy ships moved in, their weapons firing in a relentless barrage. Jason and Lyra coordinated their responses, directing the ship's weapons and deploying countermeasures. Kara's leadership kept the settlers organized and focused, their training paying off as they managed to hold their ground. The battle was fierce. The sky was filled with explosions and the bright flashes of energy beams. Jason's hands were steady as he worked the controls, targeting enemy ships and coordinating with Lyra. "We've got to take out their flagship," Jason shouted. "It's the key to breaking their command." Lyra and Kara agreed. The flagship was heavily armed, but it was also the most crucial target. They focused their firepower on it, dodging enemy blasts and launching precision strikes. The enemy fleet fought back fiercely, but the combined strength of the Yalari technology and human ingenuity began to turn the tide. The flagship's shields faltered and its systems began to fail under the intense assault. With a final, decisive shot, the flagship exploded in a brilliant flash. The remaining enemy ships, seeing their command ship destroyed, fell into disarray. They began to retreat, their coordinated attack now a chaotic scramble. As the last of the enemy ships disappeared into the distance, the defenders let out a collective sigh of relief. The battle was won, but the cost had been high. The settlement had suffered some damage, but the casualties were minimal, thanks to their preparedness and quick response. Jason, Lyra, and Kara looked out at the stars, the aftermath of the battle still settling around them. They had faced a formidable threat and emerged victorious. The settlement had been defended, and humanity had shown its strength once again. "We did it," Jason said, his voice filled with pride. "We protected our new home and proved that humanity is not to be underestimated." Lyra and Kara nodded, their expressions a mix of relief and triumph. "We're ready for whatever comes next," Lyra said. "Together we can face anything." As they stood together, looking out at the vast expanse of space, they knew that their journey was far from over. The galaxy was full of challenges, but with their courage, determination, and unity, they were ready to meet them head-on.